citizens.
Yes. Well, we are here essentially at the Vegas of President Bola in the spirit of the Home Agenda to see here on global health practices on value addition. We are setting up 8 agro-industrial zones in the first place in our country, and it's fairly imperative to visit an African success story where there's a whole chain of value addition, cotton, cashew, and soybean value chain.
The 1,640 hectares public-private zone developed with Arise began production in 2021 and now provide over 2,500 jobs. The Vice President said Nigeria will replicate aspects of the Benin model as it sets up 8 agro-industrial zones across Nigeria. Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, Hope Uzodinma, Umar Namadi, Dikko Radda, Khaled Muhwang, and Dauda Lawal all expressed readiness to explore similar projects in their state. The visit, according to the Vice President, is aimed at learning how to link agriculture to manufacturing, attract private investment, and convert raw materials into finished products. The delegation ended the tour by planting trees to mark environmentally sustainable industrial development. Mustafa Muhammad, AIT News, Abuja.
The Senate has concluded its third legislative year, drawing the curtain on a month of intensive legislative activities marked by the passage of key bills, oversight functions and resolutions on critical national issues. Lawmakers reviewed the Chamber's activities over the past year and reaffirmed their commitment to advancing legislation aimed at improving governance, strengthening national security and supporting economic growth. The final plenary also witnessed the public reconciliation between President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, and the Senator representing Edo North, Adams Oshiomhole, bringing an end to recent tensions between them. Our correspondent Oyedi Yarum has more.
It's the final plenary session of the Senate before its annual recess. The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, says the upper chamber had demonstrated its commitment to nation building through the consideration and passage of critical legislation, approval of executive requests, oversight of ministries, departments and agencies, as well as interventions on issues affecting the welfare of Nigerians.
I'll begin by thanking the President of the Senate, as well as distinguished members of this Senate, for all your time and attention to both urgent and non-urgent matters of public importance during the legislative year that is ending today.
That we do now proceed on our annual recess, and you'll come back in good health to continue to save your fatherland.
Lawmakers were urged to use the annual recess to engage more closely with their constituents, assess the impact of government policies, and gather feedback that will enrich legislative debates when the Senate reconvenes. The closing session also witnessed the reconciliation between the Senate President Godswill Akpabio and Senator Adams Oshiomhole, as both lawmakers agreed to put their differences behind and work together in the interests of the National Assembly.
We signed a truce of no more hostilities, and the Senate President breached the truce by reverting to a previous matter with a view to behaving like. So I told Mr. Senate President, the truce stands. You should not violate, I will not violate. You are my brother. You are my leader. You are my president.
Oshiomhole, if whatever I said could have in any way injured him or he felt offended, I was responding to Senator Ogoshi Onao when he referred to the issue, which at that time, the senior Senator Oshiomhole said we should bring the man dead to our life. Sorry, okay, we have a truce, no more hostility. Agreement is agreement. So I assure you, I will never refer to the unsenatorial comment of bringing the man dead to our life. But I want to assure you that this chair will protect everyone, every single senator, and particularly my brother, my friend, my colleague, when we were governors, and in every respect, a leader in my zone, Distinguished Senator Adams Oshimole. I hold you in very high esteem, and I assure you that agreement is agreement.
The relationship between the two senior lawmakers had become strained in recent weeks, but Oshomole openly disagreed with some of Akpabio's positions during plenary. The Senate is expected to resume after the annual recess in September. Oyeja Orom, AIT News, Abuja.
And as Osun State prepares for its governorship election scheduled for August 15, 2026, stakeholders are intensifying calls for a credible and transparent process, describing the poll as a major test of Nigeria's democratic integrity ahead of the 2027 general election. A social political group, the Imole Council, after a meeting with the Matthew Kuka Center, raised concerns about the need for electoral stakeholders to uphold global standards. Addressing journalists, the group disclosed that it has allotted the international community to closely monitor the election and ensure that institutions involved in the process carry out their responsibility without bias.
2026, the people of Osun State will proceed to vote in the coming state governorship election. It is important for the entire world to know that the coming election in Osun State is important to Nigeria and is important to the whole world. This election is a major test of the integrity of INEC. And beyond that is a major test of the integrity of our institutions to know if we are prepared enough to conduct a free, fair, and credible election in the 2027 coming general election.
The council stressed that the credibility of Osun poll goes beyond the state, noting that it will serve as a benchmark for future elections in Nigeria, as it has become imperative for authorities to demonstrate commitment to free, fair, and credible elections. And Nigeria's former head of state and chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, retired, has urged the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to remain impartial and ensure justice for all political parties ahead of the Osun governorship polls and the 2027 general election. General Abubakar said this when the chairman of INEC, Professor Joash Amukwiton, accompanied by national commissioners and members of the commission's management, paid him a visit at his residence in Minna, Niger State. Pledging his support for INEC, Abubakar asked the Commission to conduct elections that are free, fair, credible, and transparent, stressing that every political party must be given equal treatment, irrespective of political pressure. Abubakar points out the enormous responsibility placed on the leadership of the electoral body, describing the office of the INEC chairman as one of the most demanding in Nigeria's democratic system. He advised the Commission to remain focused on its constitutional mandate, ignore distraction, and faithfully uphold the oath of office. The former head of state discloses that the National Peace Committee would meet in Abuja on July 29 ahead of the signing of the peace accord for the Osun governorship election scheduled for July 30, reaffirming the committee's commitment to promoting peaceful, transparent, and credible polls across Nigeria. Speaking, the INEC chairman laments the operational challenges confronting the Commission. He frowns at the last-minute court orders that compelled INEC to alter election preparations, as he explains that his legal director informed him recently of another court order directing INEC to add another political party after it had printed ballot papers for the Osun polls. He disclosed further that the ballot papers will likely have to be cancelled and reprinted before the Osun election. INEC also disclosed that its management also visited the former military President General Ibrahim Babangida, retired, at his residence in Minna, saying the visit to the elder statesman is part of its consultation ahead of the upcoming polls and to honor contributions to democracy, peace building, and national stability, while also seeking his continued support and prayers for the successful conduct of elections. Amokpiton assures Nigerians that every valid vote would count in the Osun governorship election and the 2027 general election. He urged eligible voters to take advantage of the ongoing continuous voter registration and register, saying the third phase of the exercise would close on Sunday, July 26. A former deputy national chairman of and chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, Olabode George, has called out to the National Judicial Council on what he described as a growing public anxiety over judicial decisions that have generated widespread concern regarding the independence, impartiality, and the credibility of the courts as the last hope of the common man. but a judge who interfaced with journalists at his Ikoyi residence in Lagos on Friday explained that whenever judicial pronouncement, whether rightly nor wrongly done, give rise to a reasonable public perception of political influence or constitutional inconsistency, confidence in the administration of justice is gravely diminished.
I therefore respectfully call upon the National Judicial Council to discharge its constitutional mandate with courage, impartiality, and firmness expected of the guardian of judicial ethics and accountability. In doing so, the Council will not only preserve the honor of the bench, but also reaffirm the confidence of the Nigerian people that justice in our country remains blind to political pressure and faithful only to the Constitution and the rule of law.
He said Nigerians deserve a justice system they can trust, not one that appears to reward judicial impunity, embolden constitutional abuse, and accelerate the nation's slide towards institutional collapse. He called on the National Judicial Council, who bears both a constitutional and moral responsibility, to ensure that the bench remains beyond reproach, adding that the erosion of judicial integrity threatens not merely individual litigants, but the very foundation of constitutional democracy itself. Agricultural experts have been urged to adopt innovative approaches that will attract more youth into agriculture as part of efforts to reduce poverty, tackle unemployment, and strengthen food security across the country and beyond. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo gave this charge while receiving a delegation of agricultural experts at the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library in Abeokuta, Ogun State. He advocated integrating entertainment, culture, and other youth-driven initiatives into agriculture to make the sector more appealing and economically rewarding for young Africans.
Nigeria's farming population growing older, experts have continued to express concern about the future of food production. Available statistics indicate that the average age of a Nigerian farmer is between 55 and 60 years, raising fears of a looming food security challenge if younger generations do not embrace agriculture. To reverse the trend and complement the Federal Ministry of Youth Development's Youth Agribusiness Land Trust Fund initiative, agricultural stakeholders are exploring innovative strategies, including leveraging entertainment, culture, and the creative industry to stimulate young people's interest in agribusiness.
Now to tell them to go to tilling of the land. No. From the fund we are generating collective projects. We provide all the necessary amenities.
Now we are trying to bring in this youth to know the value of what we have, and also for them to be able to appreciate what God had done for us in this country.
The former President Olusegun Obasanjo also stressed the need for African countries to modernize agricultural through mechanization, improve the technology, and value chain development, saying this remains critical to boosting productivity, ensuring food sufficiency, and creating sustainable employment for millions of young people across the continent.
It's about agribusiness from preparation of equipment for land clearing up through the value chain up to the food on the table. They are all yes. And preparing for what you call exhibition and cultural show and entertainment.
Niyi Marayesa, AIT News, Abeokuta.
The Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation, Tanimu Yakubu, has defended the agency's role in controversial budgetary allocation to the Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council, PFIPC, insisting that despite provisions made in the 2026 Appropriation Act, not a single kobo was released because the statutory conditions for expenditure were never fulfilled. The Director General, who made this known while appearing before the House of Representatives ad hoc committee investigating the alleged unlawful establishment and funding of the council, was further quizzed by lawmakers over the legal basis upon which budgetary provisions were made for the council.
There was no executive order creating this agency. Two, there was no act of National Assembly because the act so submitted is fake, it's not genuine. And unfortunately, there is no single document here before us indicating that either the Budget Office or the Ministry of Finance had made an effort to clarify, in line with the excellent provisions of Authentication Act, to clarify from the National Assembly as to the authenticity of this document, which is called the Act creating this new agency.
The issue was never whether Parliament appropriated funds. It was whether the law permitted those funds to become expenditure. The law required financial clearance, lawful recruitment, payroll enrollment, treasury warranting, cash backing, and procurement approvals. Those conditions never arose. The appropriation therefore remained an appropriation. It never became expenditure. The public record should reflect the distinction. The public record should reflect that distinction, because if the distinction upon which the integrity of the expenditure control system rests.
And it will not be right for all agencies to verify all documents. If head of service verified, we, the National Assembly, receive budget from the executive. We assume that all those verifications have been made, and we acted on it before submission. So Budget Office is telling us that he equally, in view of the documents supporting the request for budget to his office, which we are all forged and fake, it emanates from the office of the head of service of the Federation. She appeared here, and she equally confirmed that those documents were forged and fake.
Committee chairman says the investigation has shifted from the Budget Office to determining how forged documents found their way into official government processes, announcing that the Accountant General of the Federation is expected to appear before the committee on Monday to explain how the council obtained its budget code, while other agencies would also be questioned as the panel moves toward concluding its investigation. And if you just joined us, you're watching AIT Report. Stay with us, we'll bring you more stories after this break.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
Many thanks for staying there with us. And to more stories now, stakeholders in the education sector said increasing programs that provide scholarships, free meals, and support for children from low-income homes can reduce idleness and crime, which they describe as two major drivers of criminal activities in Nigeria. The educationists who were speaking at the graduation ceremony of Not Forgotten Initiative School in Asokoro, Abuja, are therefore calling on government and private partners to support and expand inclusive education nationwide. AIT's Zamaka Ezekwe tells us more.
In many rural and underserved communities, less privileged children are often forced to choose between education and work to support their households, therefore leaving thousands of them without the basic rights to learn and build a better future for themselves and their families. Some non-governmental organizations like the Not Forgotten Initiative School, NFI, have stood in the gap for the well-being of such children through free education, free meals, and other basic needs of life.
I think it is very critical and very important that, our well-to-do people invest in the children that are coming up, because if they don't, they will never also rest in peace themselves.
I visited this school a few months ago, And already now I can see a change in some of the children, how they speak with confidence, how can they read, how they, carry themselves. And that gives me so much hope.
The founder of the school, Luatu Sedeni, told the gathering that the 2025 graduation ceremony is being celebrated with joy and sadness due to an eviction notice given to them to vacate the school premises just in a few days to come after 7 years of free occupancy.
We have only a few days to remain before we must vacate this premises. This place has been home to thousands of lessons, countless memories, endless laughter, and transformed lives.
Government should come to their rescue. Government may not necessarily take it over, but the government should find a way to support them. And of course, it's also an opportunity to call on public-spirited organizations, to ramp up support for them.
Parents and students who also appeal to both government and philanthropic individuals for a new location expressed concerns on the fate of over 200 children and young people that may be forced to stay at home in the next academic year.
Aside what NFI has impacted, the school is also close to where I stay. So when they say NFI is being taken away from here to somewhere far, I wonder how I will be able to afford the transportation of transporting my child from my house down to that place.
I feel sad, but I also thank the AIT people for allowing us to stay here for 7.5 years. They really cared for us.
Not Forgotten Initiative School, NFI, is a community-driven educational project built on one conviction that no child should be denied education because of poverty or circumstance. Guests were entertained with cultural performances, choreography, art exhibition, among others. Amaka Ezekwe, AIT News, Abuja.
Israel has pledged fresh funding, mentorship and technology transfer for Nigerian innovators with the announcement of the 5th edition of the Innovation Fellowship for Aspiring Inventors and Researchers, IFA 5. The commitment was made on Friday at the closing ceremony of the IFA Cohort 4 and Innovation Showcase Challenge in Abuja, where participants unveiled prototypes developed in agriculture, healthcare, clean energy and community innovation.
Outgoing Israeli Ambassador Michael Freeman announced that funding for IFA 5 has been secured and the program will begin in October 2026. He described IFA as a symbol of the growing innovation partnership between Nigeria and Israel, saying the initiative brings together academia, governments, investors and entrepreneurs to turn ideas into economic growth.
This program has never been about bringing Israeli solutions to Nigeria. It's been about helping brilliant Nigerian innovators develop Nigerian solutions to Nigerian challenges, supported by Israeli experience, mentorship, and innovation. That is what true partnership looks like.
Freeman, who is leaving Nigeria after 4.5 years, said both countries have strengthened cooperation in water management, healthcare, education and technology during his tenure.
Together, we have promoted innovation, strengthened links between our countries, and demonstrated what can be achieved when Israeli innovation meets Nigerian talent and determination. You have never just delivered programs. You have built relationships, opened doors, solved problems, and shared a belief that innovation can change lives.
On his part, TEDFund Executive Secretary Sonia Chano said TEDFund is establishing innovation centers in over 60 tertiary institutions to bridge the gap between research and industry and help students turn research into market-ready products.
The program has succeeded in providing a unique platform, an opportunity that brings together ideas, inventors, mentors, entrepreneurs, and prospective investors from Israel and beyond, and on a platform that is driving the growth of the innovation ecosystem and making a positive impact on the everyday lives of our people.
IFA is a partnership between Embassy of Israel, TEDFund, and InnovHub aimed at supporting Nigerian innovators with mentorship, engineering support, and funding to commercialize their ideas. some of these. Sadiat Dusumu, AIT News, Abuja.
That is the AIT report. I am Olamide Arroyo. Many thanks for staying with us.
For 2 years, Precious Mbomboli took pills daily to prevent infection with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. But the 21-year-old is among the first in Zambia to receive a new injectable prevention drug.
For 2 years, yes.
I changed the new injectable on 25th February because the pill was difficult for me, as I used to forget to take it. Sometimes I was not at home at the time of taking the medication, so the injection makes me feel better and confident.
The new drug is known as cabotegravir, long-acting. Each shot prevents infection for 6 months. Zambia is the first low or middle-income country to offer the drug to the public. Lina Mwango is technical director of the local non-profit CHEP Zambia.
Our target age group for this is adolescent girls and young women who are aged 16 to 24, as well as we're reaching out to their sexual partners.
Local representatives called connectors are helping roll out the program.
The connector is based in the community. We do community mobilization, we do community sensitizations, we go on screen the girls that are eligible for dreams, those that are eligible get to be enrolled.
The U.S. government has donated nearly 15,000 vials of the drug known as cabotegravir. That's enough to protect 2,000 Zambians against HIV for 1 year, the U.S. Embassy says. But experts say people who get the shot still need to take precautions.
People get the injection and then they think it's a silver bullet, in that then they can go out and sleep around. And really the message here is that that's not why this drug has been brought on board. To realize that this drug does not prevent pregnancies, it doesn't prevent other sexually transmitted infections.
About 1.4 million Zambians are living with HIV, with about 33,000 new infections per year. Experts hope the new drug can help bring those numbers down. Kathy Short, VOA News, Lusaka, Zambia.
Hello and welcome to The Teacher. the program where we celebrate teachers, examine the realities of our classrooms, and shape conversations that matter in education. I am your host, Joe Dauda, and today promises to be both inspiring and eye-opening. Now let's turn to the heart of today's discussion as we examine a critical issue affecting education in our country. That issue is funding and inadequate infrastructure in Nigerian schools and how it impacts the teacher. Let's begin with a short documentary report to set the tone of our discussion.
In Nigeria, the children are ready. The question is the nation ready to invest in them?
In rural communities, some school buildings have leaky roofs, broken desks, and no electricity. I mean, can you imagine that? Teachers often improvise, turning empty cartons into teaching aids, writing on cracked chalkboards, and managing multiple grade levels in a single room. Nigeria's population continues to grow, and budgetary allocation to education remains below international recommendations. The result, teachers carry the burden emotionally, physically, and professionally. Low funding affects teachers' salaries, training opportunities, classroom resources, and morale. Infrastructure gaps, from inadequate laboratories to overcrowded classrooms, make effective teaching increasingly difficult. Yet every morning, teachers show up. They teach, they inspire, they endure. Joining me to talk on these issues is a lecturer with the University of Abuja, Dr. Awaritoma Agoma. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Doctor.
Glad to be here.
It's good to see you again. So we're going to begin with funding. Every report that has been published about funding, in the educational sector shows that Nigeria's educational sector is underfunded, of course, compared to the global recommendation. So how does this affect infrastructure and the quality of teaching?
I think it's very, very obvious, because virtually anything you do without proper remuneration and incentives, you are not able to truly do it well, in spite of the fact that a lot of people are passionate about teaching or lecturing. But when you don't get the appropriate or adequate funding or incentives, your morale, like they say, will be low. So that is the first point. The lecturers are not happy. They don't teach with all their might, so to say, or the teachers, so to say, because they become distracted, especially when you know that there's a benchmark globally. There's a standard globally. When you get to find out, for instance, that South Africa here, the professors there earn above $4,000 monthly, and our professors here are struggling to earn, right now with the recent increase or increment by the federal government, our professors will be earning about 1 million naira per month.
Which is still less than $1,000.
Less than $1,000. It's very, very discouraging, to say the least, very annoying. Because when you find, because the same services they deliver over there is what we do here, what we give here. I want to say this clearly. My younger brother's wife, he was in South Africa for a while, for 3 years. She is just a degree holder. But they had reason to interact with a particular professor in South Africa, where they were for about 3 years. And because she's a degree holder, the professor asked her, please, can you or could you assist me in marking my students' sheets, after the exams? All she needed to do was she provided the marking scheme, and it's very easy. For about 1 month, that professor in South Africa paid my younger brother's wife, 600,000 naira just for marking. To me, that saddened me the more. How can a professor is paying an undergrad or a graduate rather 600,000 naira per month? My salary is not up to 600,000 naira for 1 full month with all the services that I render, and that to me was truly very, very. I don't want it was depressing. I felt truly. I said, what is it possible?
Is that bad?
They not tell me, if you allow me to use that. That this is somebody that I know that is you know, narrating her tale. And she's still here. The professor still sends work to her. Please, we've just finished exam, so are you still available to do this service or me carry out this service? She said yes.
Meanwhile, marking is just a little part of your work.
Exactly. A professor pays 600,000 naira. So that tells you that her salary, over $4,000.
Of course. So this is how it affects the teachers. Then the infrastructure issue.
Of course, infrastructure, the decay there is something, it's an eyesore. We're in class teaching, apart from the fact that the buildings, the structures are dilapidating by the minute, we don't have complete structures. We have structures in some of our schools where you are teaching, and then, you know, when the wind comes, you know, you rain because there are no adequate toilets for the students and even the lecturers. If you are teaching in a class sometimes and you are pressed, you are in trouble, my brother.
Really?
Yes.
Is it that bad?
You are in trouble. You may have to find... So I let her know. So funding, and then that is, I'm talking of human challenges. Yeah. Then when you talk about our laboratories, our libraries, you know, we don't even have internet so that we can be up to date with what is obtainable globally. So it is truly very, very saddening when you know that funding is truly, truly very, very poor.
But you know something about this funding. This funding talk is not new. There has always been a problem of funding. Why is that the case?
No, let us at least meet with the global standard. UNESCO says about 15 to 20% of the nation's budget, the national budget, is what should be allocated to the educational sector. Have we ever done 8%? I don't want to even go to 10%. We have not, I'm not sure we've done 8% in this nation. So that to me, so let them first of all give us, or give the sector, that's 15 to 20%.
Okay, that's your direct recommendation.
Yes.
Just give
Let us
what is
begin
recommended.
from there. And then we'll now take it up from there.
All right, so we are going to take a break right now and come back. Don't go away.
Teaching goes far beyond the lesson plan. It's about the people. Every student carries a unique story, and as teachers, we are honored to be a chapter in it. We want to hear from you. Is there a teacher who changed your perspective? Or a school memory that stuck with you? Tell us your story. Do you have a picture of your school now? As an alumni, tell us one basic infrastructure or resource your school needs most right now to help the next generation thrive. Send them via WhatsApp on 070-6925-1712. The teacher, one student, one classroom, and one teacher at a time.
Welcome back to The Teacher. We have been talking with a very engaging personality, Dr. Awaritoma Agoma. He is a lecturer with the University of Abuja here. He is a no-holds-barred kind of person. I like the way he's giving it, dishing it out as he feels it. Doctor, apart from the issue of salary, which of course is the basic thing, do teachers have opportunities for professional development?
Again, I always like examples. A friend of mine who was telling me about the need to JAPA, that we should begin to look out for opportunities in the US, in Europe and Canada. He said in the US, the lecturers there, they receive, not all the schools though, but most schools in the United States of America, the lecturers get $10,000 annually to upgrade and update their lecture notes so that you don't repeat the same notes that you used, for instance, this year, 2026. Going into 2027, you need to update, upgrade, make sure you carry out research so that you can meet up, so that you don't give the same thing. My brother, the same notes that my lecturers use in teaching me for the 4 years I was an undergraduate, those same notes are what some of them are still using to teach the students there.
And that's more than 20 years ago.
What are you talking? I'm talking 31, 34, 5 years ago. I graduated my first degree 35 years ago, 1991.
Nothing has
Those
changed.
same notes are what they are using, just a little variation. So, and the same thing applies to most of us, because the incentives are not there. Imagine you getting $10,000
just to upgrade
grant every year. Just make sure you don't repeat. He knows when I've finished bombarding those students with new, innovative...
Yes, you will do well.
You understand what I mean?
So how much do you get for that upgrade in Nigeria?
Nothing. We don't get any not a dime is given to us here for any kind of upgrading or updating of lecture notes.
That's just an example. How about other kind of professional development?
When we don't have infrastructure, a lot of us just do theories. You know, experiential learning is out of it. When we don't have laboratories, you know, the kind of chemicals we need, and then perhaps practical materials to teach practical courses, it's a big problem. So we end up giving a lot of certificates, theater arts.
Theater arts.
For instance, I don't have, but of course, we could improvise. We do a lot of improvisation with the theater, so that to me is not a big challenge for us as theater arts teachers or lecturers, because anywhere we find ourselves, improvisation is part of the business, and so we improvise a lot. But for those who need to, for instance, my daughter graduated from veterinary medicine. She read veterinary medicine. And not much was done. They're supposed to be carrying out surgical operation on some of those animals. Goats, cats, you know, you name them. But she didn't have much of those experience while she was there. It was while she was doing internship, and then when she graduated, she was fortunate to get a good clinic to serve, where she did youth service, and then she continued. She was employed there. Then she started experiencing a practical aspect of the profession. So that is a big setback.
How can public-private partnership address this deficit in infrastructure? Because we had a commissioner of Ogun State. Yes. He was saying that the state came up with lots of ideas where individuals, good-spirited individuals, can come in, maybe build auditoriums. It happens, but how can we push it to a more...
Okay, if the politicians take their hands off the business, I know that in my school, for instance, there's been a lot towards public-private partnership, building of hostels,
address infrastructure,
to address some of this infrastructural deficit. For instance, they want to build hostels, build more classrooms, and all of that, and even provide transportation, you know, standard buses, and move so transportation will be easy in the on campus. Now, whoever is the vice chancellor, if it's not somebody who has been a politician before, that will tell you to bring his court, it's a problem. Public-private partnership is what, ordinarily, that should help. My school, we have over 40,000 students. Accommodation for the students is below 7,000. Imagine the problem. It has created a situation where students live around villages, and they are suffering attacks because of insecurity.
Of course.
So, with the public-private partnership, if those politically minded VCs will allow it, I'm sure that's the best way to go. Build, they say, for like 30 years, they collect whatever they want to collect.
Just the way they do toll gates.
Yes, and they hand over to the school. I don't see anything wrong in that. They want to build smart hostels, you know, bring in buses that are not using fuel, you know, maybe...
CNG buses.
Yes, and electricity-driven vehicles. Those are things that we're looking up to. And we believe that they will help. But sometimes, when they do it like it's obtainable, where they overinflate these costs,
the contract costs,
just because of what they want to gain, it is a problem.
Because
so we are
the
back
private
to
sector
square one.
can't make business sense out of it.
So nothing happens, nothing moves, we stagnate. It's a big problem. So we must learn to have vice chancellors or leadership in the universities who are not politically minded, let me not use that word, who have not been taught or told to make returns. That's where the challenge is. They make you a vice chancellor, asking you to begin to bring returns.
Would you like to see this raised to the policy level, as in the policy, education policy?
Yes, so that you bring a vice chancellor who is an academic, somebody who knows this, who's been in the system and knows what to do. Not somebody who is there to enrich himself.
Okay, so how can parents and communities support teachers? In what practical ways?
We know that we have parents who are well-to-do, and some of them truly help. The support, like I know some people have asked that they be given, they want to build a hostel, they'll be named after them. Again, allow them. What is wrong with building? He's coming to build one hostel that will take not less than maybe 100 to 200 students. He says, name it after me. I don't see anything wrong.
Is it happening? Is it happening?
Yes. Okay. But some of them are not. They are still telling them they won't allow them to name them. It's our school thing. No. Just let them name it after whoever wants to build it.
Oh, you mean even such people are being discouraged in some cases?
In a lot, it's terrible. When you see such things happening, it's a problem. You understand? So I believe communities also. I was watching not too long ago a young lady who later turned out to be old in one of the in China. Let's just use it. And she said she grew that village like she was a local government chairman. I saw it on one of these Chinese news stations. She, by herself, single-handedly, working with the community, the people. You know, we have this course we call community theater or theater for development, where you go in there, you help prod the people to begin to take matters into their hands. We don't all need to wait for the government. Whatever little you have, if you bring, they say, little drops of water make a mighty ocean. If you, from your famine, you can bring 10 naira. You bring 10 naira, you bring 10 naira. That woman built a stadium. Before you could say, Jack, she built a hospital. That community is now it has become a city. All because she was resolute, she was resilient, she was determined, and she was able to convince the people. She wasn't stealing their money. Because that is another big problem we have. So when the community decides to support that kind of local government chairman, who will not be making returns, because our problem is people that ask for, they put you there, bring returns. Nobody can work like that.
It complicates everything.
And that is what this nation is about.
Nothing will work.
That is our problem in this country.
30 seconds to go.
Yeah.
If a policy maker is watching you right now, what do you want to tell them to make them understand why they should do something and what can they do?
No, I think any policy maker should begin to think of prioritizing education in this nation, adding value to what teachers do. Education should be given proper funding, and then teachers and lecturers should be valued properly, and their take-home, their welfare prioritized, such a way that it will be protected, not that one government will come differently with a different. So that those policies should be taken through the crucible, such that at the end of the day, one government will not come.
Institutionalized, as they
that's
say.
the word. God bless me. And so that you do not just come and, because you're a new government, throw it away just because you're a new government.
Thank you very
much. So that
much,
it will be
Doctor.
something that we can live with.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Your insights have been very helpful.
Teaching goes far beyond the lesson plan. It's about the people. Every student carries a unique story, and as teachers, we are honored to be a chapter in it. We want to hear from you. Is there a teacher who changed your perspective? Or a school memory that stuck with you? Tell us your story. Do you have a picture of your school now? As an alumni, tell us one basic infrastructure or resource your school needs most right now to help the next generation thrive. Send them via WhatsApp on 070-6925-1712. The teacher, one student, one classroom, and one teacher at a time.
We have celebrated excellence, examined reality, and discussed solutions. The future of education in Nigeria depends not only on policy, but on commitment from government, communities, and stakeholders. Teachers cannot build the nation alone. They need tools, they need support, they need investment. Join us next week on The Teacher as we continue to spotlight those shaping tomorrow, one school, one teacher, and one classroom at a time. Keep learning.
stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, AIT_live, and AIT Livestream 1 on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy. And our government seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go. Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe in godfatherism in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
For 2 years, Precious Mbomboli took pills daily to prevent infection with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. But the 21-year-old is among the first in Zambia to receive a new injectable prevention drug.
For 2 years, yes.
I changed the new injectable on 25th February because the pill was difficult for me, as I used to forget to take it. Sometimes I was not at home at the time of taking the medication, so the injection makes me feel better and confident.
The new drug is known as cabotegravir, long-acting. Each shot prevents infection for 6 months. Zambia is the first low or middle-income country to offer the drug to the public. Lina Mwango is technical director of the local non-profit CHEP Zambia.
Our target age group for this is adolescent girls and young women who are aged 16 to 24, as well as we're reaching out to their sexual partners.
Local representatives called connectors are helping roll out the program.
The connector is based in the community. We do community mobilization, we do community sensitizations, we go on screen the girls that are eligible for dreams, those that are eligible get to be enrolled.
The U.S. government has donated nearly 15,000 vials of the drug known as cabotegravir. That's enough to protect 2,000 Zambians against HIV for 1 year, the U.S. Embassy says. But experts say people who get the shot still need to take precautions.
People get the injection and then they think it's a silver bullet, in that then they can go out and sleep around. And really the message here is that that's not why this drug has been brought on board. To realize that this drug does not prevent pregnancies, it doesn't prevent other sexually transmitted infections.
About 1.4 million Zambians are living with HIV, with about 33,000 new infections per year. Experts hope the new drug can help bring those numbers down. Kathy Short, VOA News, Lusaka, Zambia.
Thanks for staying tuned to your station, the African Independent Television, and welcome to your program, Security Watch Africa. Only on this station and this program, you get the information you need to keep your life safe and secured. Welcome to the program today. My name remains Patrick Abambo. You know, as always, that Security Watch is the authentic and authoritative security information agency. You can get information, reliable information when it comes to security in Africa. So you're welcome to the program today. Today we're going to, you can see behind me, we're somewhere because for close to a week, we have been celebrating security, safety, hospitality, governance, media, medical, tourism, and transportation in the smiling coast of Africa, the Gambia. I will tell you more about it, and you get to see and hear some of the content of the presentations made during the 19th Africa Security Watch Conference. But that will be after this report by Lucy Tewo from the police headquarters when the small arms visited the Inspector General of Police, IGP Olatunji Disu, for seeking collaboration. I must say, it was a remarkable visit because the current Director General of the center used to be a police officer, retired as a Deputy Inspector General of Police, and today he came to the force headquarters to pay courtesy to the Inspector General of Police. Sit back as Lucy Tewo brings you the report.
The Inspector General of Police, IGP Olatunji Disu, has assured Nigerians of plans to clear the society of illicit firearms. The IGP stated this while receiving the Director General of National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons, DIG Johnson Kukumo, retired, and his management team at the force headquarters in Abuja.
We share this mission together because we cannot continue to have this great number of recovered arms being recirculated back into the society. Every arms discovered, every arm destroyed will make my job as a police easier. So it's a joint operation, it's a joint mission that we have.
The IGP said the Nigeria Police Force would strengthen operations to recover illicit weapons from unauthorized persons. This is stress that intelligence remained the most effective weapon against arms trafficking, urging seamless collaboration among security agencies.
Intelligence is very, very important. You have the spread as well. Looking at the caliber of officers, you have all the agencies in the center. You have access to members of the public, you have access to intelligence. Intelligence shared is ever worth it. And everywhere in the world, intelligence sharing is going to real-time intelligence sharing, so that we can quickly nip it in the bud. Arms are moving everywhere in the country, using the roads, the waters, and even here to move arms everywhere. And then we need to collaborate, we need to share intelligence. I repeat, real-time, real-lifetime intelligence sharing, so that we can pick them, we can nip it in the bud. Arms are moving from the battle areas, Maiduguri, Zamfara, down to the west. And most of the time they come by road and by waters as well. So timely intelligence will help us to solve this.
He proposed a joint nationwide campaign with the center to encourage the voluntary surrender of illicit weapons.
We have to talk to the members of the public. We have to advocate to them. And we have to find a way of gathering information from them, making it easy for them to give all this information. And most importantly, so we can do civil disarmament of people with illegal arms in their possession. We need to talk about it. We need to let the people know. We need to let them know that it is not only us putting on uniform that are security operatives. Everybody are the police. They say the police are the community and the community are the police. So everybody should know. Anybody carrying illegal arms around is going to use it on another citizen of the country. So all hands must be on deck to ensure that they will recover all arms. So we do civil disarmament.
The police chief called for stricter armory, regular audits, and stronger accountability.
It's very important we take care of our armories against external attack. And most importantly, who are the people we put in there to man our armories? Are they selling our arms? I will not lie to you, these wonderful teams here that we have not arrested our officers once in a while, and officers of every other agency, one time or the other, who have been involved in sales of illegal arms. We have been able to do that. So we need to go back, look at our armories, who are those manning it, and do periodic checks of all our arms.
Earlier, the Director General of National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons, DIG Johnson Kukumo, retired, appealed for deeper collaboration among security agencies.
My purpose, and of course the purpose of my team for coming here, is to seek for a way to strengthen institutional collaboration and chart a path for joint action against illicit arms proliferation.
Lucy Tawo reporting for Security Watch Africa.
Welcome back. Yes, you are still on your program, Security Watch Africa. You can see the camaraderie between the Director General of the Small Arms and Light Weapon Center with the Inspector General of Police. It was like a homecoming for the DG of the center. But we are going to go to another agency now, talking about the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Civil Defense, where the FCT command busted some vandals. And again, Lucy Tawo was with them on that trail, and she brings us this report.
The Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps (NSCDC) FCT Command has paraded 6 suspected oil pipeline vandals arrested for vandalism and theft of premium motor spirit (PMS) in Gwagwalada Area Council. The FCT Commandant Dr. Olushola Odumusu disclosed it this Thursday when the suspects were paraded. A statement issued by the FCT Command's Public Relations Officer DSC Monica Ojobi reveals that the operatives of the Command's Anti-Vandal Squad, acting on credible intelligence, arrested the suspects on Saturday, July 18, 2026 at about 3:30 a.m. while scooping PMS from an NNPC pipeline into jerrycans and plastic bags. The statement said the suspect had punctured the pipeline with a drilling machine. Lucy Tawo reporting for Security Watch Africa.
Welcome back. Yeah, Like I said earlier, we are still in the Gambia, and behind me you can see this is the 19th Africa Security Watch Conference, Gambia 2026. Of course, the theme for the conference was dimensional shift in geopolitics of Africa, its implication to security and development. And we had a collection of very knowledgeable speakers from both the private sector security, the academia, to the government security, looking at the issues of security in Africa. Now we'll bring you excerpts, bit by bit, from what was the discussion from that conference, then after which you can now know that really there was great content coming out of the conference. Sit back as we bring you some of the highlights and some of the takeaway points from the discussions.
Security Watch Africa initiative has built something that our continent sorely needs, a credible platform where policymakers, security professionals, the private sector and the public meet in honest solution-driven dialogue. Security Watch Africa initiative founding premises deserve restating in this hall. Security and safety are everyone's business. No doctrine of policing or national defense succeed without an informed and engaged public. By bringing security out of closed rooms and into public consciousness, and by honoring men and women who serve with distinction, Security Watch Africa initiative strengthens the very foundation on which professional security institutions stands.
Across our African continent, policing is increasingly challenged by terrorism, violent extremism, organized crime, cybercrime, kidnapping, maritime insecurity, communal conflicts, illicit arms trafficking, and the growing influence of technology in criminal activities. These threats require innovative, intelligence-driven, technology-enabled, and community-centered policing strategies. Internal security is the foundation upon which national development, democratic governance, economic prosperity, and social stabilities are built. No nation can achieve sustainable development where insecurity prevails. The Nigeria Police Force, as Africa's largest police organization, bears the enormous responsibility of protecting over 220 million citizens across diverse ethnic, religious, and cultural background. Consequently, policing in Nigeria has evolved significantly through reforms, strategic innovations, improved partnership, and stronger operational capabilities.
From ancient times through to colonialism, the Cold War, and to contemporary competition. Africa, therefore, has become at this stage increasingly important in the global geopolitical arena because of a number of reasons. Its strategic location, easy access to the world, in the north the Mediterranean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, because of the competition for scarce resources, and I'll still say a few things about that. Because of its growing population, Africa has the youngest population in the world. When you interact with countries like Japan and Singapore and various others, they tell you a big problem is the age. In Japan, the average age of a laborer is 53 years old. Whereas with us, it's completely a different scenario on the continent. Then, of course, the evolving security dynamics, because this is certainly evolving security dynamics. Generals, officers, if I look at you, you manage these security dynamics. You know much better than I do about what the realities are that you often have to manage on a daily basis and how they change. Then, of course, changing international trade patterns. This has changed vastly and it is continuing to change. But what we are receiving, or what we are experiencing now in Africa, is the new scramble for Africa. We know these words, the scramble for Africa. The Berlin Conference, and then a formal process of flag planting the flag, drawing borders, saying you are now a colony of this or that country. Today it is not that. But this scramble is for the resources of Africa and for influence on the continent.
Africa continues to face increasingly complex and evolving security environment characterized by terrorism, violent extremism, insurgency, transnational organized crime, piracy, cyber threats, illicit arms trafficking, and other emerging security challenges. These threats transcend national borders and therefore demand greater collaboration, intelligence sharing, capacity building, and stronger regional partnerships. Beyond the tragic loss of lives, these threats undermine national sovereignty, weaken government institutions and public confidence in them, and also disrupt economic development and generate humanitarian crises and threaten the stability upon which sustainable development depends. They equally create fatal conditions for poverty, displacement, food insecurity, and social fragmentation, amongst others. These are challenges no single nation can effectively address in isolation. Hence, our collective security depends on our collective resolve. The Nigerian Army remains fully committed to protecting Nigerian sovereignty and territorial integrity while contributing meaningfully to regional peace and stability. Guided by my command philosophy, which I quote, advancing the transformation of the Nigerian Army into a professional, adaptable, combat-ready, and resilient force, capable of decisively discharging its constitutional responsibilities within a joint and multi-agency environment, unquote.
The idea that security is a precondition for development has deep roots in both scholarship and practice, but its most practical expression is found in the concept of human security. Human security shifts the referent of protection from the state alone to the person. Safety from violence, certainly, but also safety from hunger, disease, displacement, and want. That is what security is all about. It's freedom from fear, and freedom from want. On this understanding, the police officer at a community post, the immigration officer at a border crossing, the drug law enforcement officer in a school, the fire officer responding to a disaster, and the prison officer rehabilitating an offender are all properly understood development actors. The internal security policy embraces this understanding explicitly. Its stated intention is to give security institutions the direction, means, and capacity to fulfill their obligations through active engagements with stakeholders to ensure human security at community and individual levels in accordance with respect for human rights and the rule of law.
The central argument of my presentation is that maritime security in East Africa can no longer be viewed solely through the lens of naval or even law enforcement. It's increasingly shaped by global geopolitical competition, conflict spillovers, economic dependency, critical maritime infrastructure, and others. Maritime security is therefore simply not about protecting the waters. It's about protecting economic growth. It's about national sovereignty, digital connectivity, food security, and regional stability. In order to get to that, I have set up an agenda or a scope, which sort of starts off by stating where we are, looking at the maritime risks, looking at critical maritime infrastructure, and then through maritime data flows, and then ending up with the African Integrated Maritime Security Strategy, and also then working it through to SADC and where we are standing today in terms of some practical implications as to how do we see this panning out. And then I will conclude in terms of cooperation. So in terms of the geographic backdrop, if one looks at Africa, we can see that Africa is fundamentally a maritime continent. Now that coast is approximately 30,000 kilometers long, and we see the blue and dark blue areas of the exclusive economic zones, which are also part of Africa, and then the continental shelf areas. And therefore, if one looks at the map you have there, you see that we're looking at trade routes, we're looking at choke points, and the fact that for East Africa or for the East African coastline, location is destiny.
In a world where the old certainties are no longer considered, it is necessary to understand that size does not matter, but institutions has to be totally built. As a continent once spoken about is now being consulted. For much of my career and for that of my father's generation before me, Africa used to be discussed from elsewhere, and decisions were made without our voices. Africa is mostly placed as part of the menu on the table and not part of the people to discuss about the menu being discuss about the menu. This is changing, and this is changing faster. Today, when I look at the flow of delegates coming to the Gambia, much of it, if you went through the town and you've seen some little development, this is all done through bilateral and multilateral agreement. Being at our seas, we have cables. This has widened the circle of partnership that we can get now, and this makes us to get closer to our doorsteps. With all of this, I see the continent of Africa not only as an observer, but as a participant in global dynamic shifts. Africa has become a continent that is negotiating with so many people from other continents. That approach is running helter-skelter to some level. But we need what is called a unified approach. Despite the strangeness of these methods, Africa has been asked to help not only design the menu, but also the table. So war itself is a political decision that takes time before militaries get involved in it. This is what the Prussian general Karl von Clausewitz called, and I quote, the continuation of politics by other means. Many theories of war has been developed, but all that we can say that it has led to wanton wastage of life and destruction of infrastructure.
You've mentioned how do we move forward? And I think we are all security officials here. It's not the first time that we want to believe we have security committees, we have representations in cabinet, and what we must be talking about is how to look into the enterprise risk profile for Africa. And then moving forward, I also wanted to point out what could be the integrated strategic watch for Africa when it comes to this conference? That at what level can we be represented when it comes to resolutions taken for Africa?
One thing I've learned is the African voice must be heard. It's not heard. It's not heard, and it's often not heard as a unified voice, because there's often not a unified voice. And it's very difficult to find the middle ground to be able to manage that unified voice.
I was young, have more safer security than even right now. And if you see Africa, think about Scramble for Africa in terms of natural resources. Almost all African countries that have mineral resources are in trouble. DRC Congo have the whole natural resources, they have all the whole United Nations agencies, symposiums and lectures. Why is it that there is no peace? You never do much about some of the influence that come with trade, like religions, tribe, and other things that leads to all those unrest. So the shift is it negative or positive? But to me as a person, I think it's more of negative, which means that most of the new African countries has failed. And if you see the new trend that is even more dangerous now, countries are asking another country to leave. This is within Africa. And that is a dangerous dimension in terms of geopolitics.
What are the biggest emerging security threats facing Africa over the next decades? How can security institutions better implement the Women's Peace and Security Agenda at the national and local level?
What practical strategies can African countries adopt to reduce dependency on external partnerships while still benefiting from international cooperation and assistance in addressing security challenges?
The knowledge that was shared here is so massive. We know that, of course, the security suffers when politics fails to satisfy the yearnings of the people. And at the end, the politicians will look up to security. And if care is not taken, they may blame security, but whereas it's their actions that had created the insecurity, and that is actually the major problem. But for us, we believe that security sector must have a forum where they can voice out and collectively make their voice. I'm sure you have had the discussion. I must say that this is one of the best in terms of content. Very few topics, thematic issues to look into, but really, it was quite enriching and frank discussion during the panel discussions. The resolution will be released as a communique that we will send to all regional organizations in Africa and heads of government. We believe that those heads of government and regional organizations will try and make effort to implement the communique that will come out from this conference, because it was quite far-reaching. And that is where we'll draw the curtain for this episode of the program. I believe you have enjoyed watching it. Join us again when we bring another exciting edition. But before then, follow us on all our social media platforms so that you can watch the previous editions or send us your view, send us your questions, or tell us what you want to hear or information you need concerning security and safety. Then we'll get it for you. Until next week, when we'll come your way again, I say bye for now and remain blessed.
Health is often shaped by the choices we make and the systems created to protect those choices. Hello and welcome to Health Digest, your go-to program for timely, relevant, and people-focused health conversations. I'm Ukemere Tokwa. Today on the program, we explore important health stories, expert insight, and developments making an impact. On that note, let's begin with our health news.
Let's begin our health news from Abuja, where the rising cost of healthcare, which has placed heavy financial burdens on families, leaving many indigent patients without access to the medical care they desperately need, is getting a renewed public attention. For vulnerable Nigerians, the inability to pay for medical diagnosis and treatment often means living with pain, uncertainty, and preventable health complications. To change this narrative, Wealth Help, a subsidiary of Century 21 Freedom Group, has intensified efforts to restore hope through its charity initiative. Officials of the organization explained that the initiative was established in response to the increasing number of individuals forced to delay or abandon treatment because of financial constraints.
We have people who cannot even afford to pay for their medical bed. For as low as 17,500, 20,000 naira, we have people in that category. We have in neonatal, we have female medical ward, and also we have in the pediatrics ward, right? So those people crosses across all those categories. So the goal is to clear their medical bills.
Health experts expressed gratitude for the assistance received, noting that the intervention has given patients a renewed hope to continue treatment while calling for collaborative efforts between government and private organizations to play a role in ensuring that vulnerable Nigerians are not left behind.
Any little drop that is targeted at charity will practically go a long way towards letting people know that there is hope. And no matter what their medical diagnosis is not the end of the world.
We are imploring the rest of Nigerians, the NGOs, that they should come, please. We need more of them. We have so many indigent patients in the world.
The federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to supporting state-driven healthcare industrialization, renewing its partnership with the Borno State government to expand local healthcare manufacturing and strengthen Nigeria's health sector. At a meeting in Abuja, the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Ali Patey, said the federal government would provide enabling policies, technical assistance and regulatory support to ensure the success of the initiative. The meeting brought together senior officials of the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare and a Borno State delegation led by Governor Babagana Umaru Zulum, with discussions focused on plans to establish a Tom Brown production facility to support the treatment of malnutrition, as well as pharmaceutical manufacturing aimed at increasing local production of essential medicines and reducing Nigeria's dependence on imports.
Ideas of manufacturing are not new. They've been talked about for decades. There's a reason why countries and places have been deindustrialized. And the key ingredient is leadership. And in Borno State and in this governor that you have here, you have a leader who is a doer. We've signed the Africa Medicines Agency Treaty. We've deposited the instruments. So Nigeria is part of a coalition of 24 countries. So what you produce in Borno State, you have the Nigerian market that is growing, but you have a wider African market as well. So the prospects are
The initiative forms part of the federal government's broader healthcare industrialization agenda, which seeks to strengthen local manufacturing capacity, improve healthcare delivery, and enhance national health security.
Establishing an industrial park in Borno State that is fully powered by solar power with all the infrastructure, roads, and so on. So what we're doing for Borno State, as we are doing for other states, is to bring in investors. And we're lucky we've attracted investors called the Japur Group that have been operating in almost 30 countries around the world.
Governor Zulum reaffirmed Borno State's commitment to providing a conducive environment for investors, assuring prospective partners of the state support for the successful implementation of the project.
I've already procured 5 megawatt power plant, solar power plant, the industrial park. And we are in the process of establishing the 5 megawatt. We are also providing road networks inside the industrial park. We still also meet the pharmaceutical factory in Maiduguri. The market is there.
The proposed facilities would not only meet the healthcare needs of Borno State, but also serve neighboring states and countries within the region. Stakeholders at the meeting described the partnership as a major milestone in positioning Nigeria as a regional hub for pharmaceutical and healthcare manufacturing.
Still ahead on Health Digest, some major health developments making headlines. The World Health Organization is warning that yellow fever remains a growing public health concern. With continued transmission reported in parts of Africa and Americas, the World Health Organization says vaccination, surveillance, and rapid response remains critical in preventing outbreaks, especially in high-risk communities. Also, researchers at the University of Queensland have discovered that a molecule from Australian Pheno web spider venom may protect brain cells from damage after stroke. Scientists say the findings could help develop future treatments to reduce stroke-related brain injury. And now to our Outreach Edge, where we spotlight health initiatives and awareness campaigns making community impact. Cancer is one of Nigeria's biggest silent killers, and cancer campaign awareness aims at educating communities about early detection, prevention, and treatment options. The Mariam Astawande Cancer Support Foundation has lent its voice in creating awareness against breast and prostate cancer with an outreach in Abuja that sensitized members of the public on the need for early detection and treatment of the disease.
Usually in this part of the world, people present late, meaning there is still a lot of gap in awareness, right? People come to the hospital when it's already very, very late, and it becomes more difficult to treat, and it becomes more expensive also to treat. Yeah, so if government can support us to, take awareness to not just the urban areas, to take awareness to rural areas, to market women just like we're doing today, to, places where the common man cannot get to.
Salami, a cancer survivor and a founder of the Mariam Atswande Cancer Support Foundation, said the objectives of the free prostate and breast cancer screening was to create awareness and also call for more investment in the government and cancer management.
Cancer. Even government alone cannot handle it. That is why you see normal civil society people, normal people, they come here, they can't do. People, NGOs, individuals, philanthropists can come together and, come together and make the message louder. It will go a long way. Government is doing something already, but it is still not enough. So, collective efforts will make it better.
So we're trying to create awareness. We're trying to encourage people to come for screening because early detection would save a life. It is when the cancer has progressed beyond redemption, that is when you can actually not save them. So we're using this free screening by Medicaid Cancer Foundation as an opportunity to enlighten people, enlighten the men. Most times there's always focus on women, but today it's actually about the men. You need to know about your prostate. You need to know that, okay, there are things that can make you prone to prostate cancer, So it is very important for the men to take their health serious as well, to go for regular screenings to check whether, as long as they are getting from the age of 40 and above, to check their prostate to be sure that everything down there is okay, because we know a lot of men shy away from things like this.
Beneficiaries, while commending the organizers, also used the opportunity to call for the establishment of additional centers to improve access to care and assist in reducing the rising number of cancer cases and related deaths in Nigeria. You're still watching Health Digest, and now it's time for Health Tech, where we explore ideas and innovations shaping the future of healthcare. Stay with us. Wearable health technology has developed far beyond counting steps. Devices such as smartwatches, smart rings, skin patches, and medical sensors can now monitor health indicators, including heart rate and abnormal heart rhythms, blood oxygen levels, sleep patterns, physical activity, and body temperature. Glucose levels in some specialized devices as well. The major innovation is a continuous monitoring and traditionally accepted method in which a doctor may measure a patient's blood pressure or heart rate only during hospital visits. Now, wearable technology can potentially collect health information throughout the day and identify unusual changes. In Africa, however, the affordability remains a significant issue. The greatest potential may therefore not only lie in expensive consumer smartwatches, but in the affordable medical sensor and remote monitoring devices designed specifically for low-resource settings. Finally, we're here on our Chat with the Expert segment, where we shift our focus to an important part of healthcare that affects everyone. We're looking at the safe quality and regulations of medicines. Let's take a look.
Register for manufacturing is exclusively supposed to undertake the process manufacturing. Ditto for importers, ditto for distributors. They don't have interface with clients, with patients, with consumer. Ditto for wholesalers. Now, the community pharmacy, that's the retail pharmacy, are the one that are supposed to have interface with the patients, with the client, with the customers, as well as the pharmacies in the hospital. Now, you also have the patent and proprietary medicine vendors that are also having direct contact with the patients. Now, these categories of facilities that have direct contact with the patients have a clear expected rules and regulation. The community pharmacies are supposed to be run under the direct supervision of a superintendent pharmacist. A superintendent pharmacist is a professional, a pharmacist who has been licensed,
yes,
who has the authority for processes of manufacturing, if he found himself or herself in that endeavor, or importation, or wholesaling, compounding, counseling, handling distribution of medicines and poisons. It's a wide range of all, let me call it all categories of medicine, down to poisons. Now, the patent and proprietary medicine vendors are only supposed to handle over-the-counter medicines. Mm-hmm. Nothing outside that. Anyone that handles medicines outside that, of course, is in breach of the regulation, and if found in the course of enforcement, will be taken up for that, for sanction. So I have laid out the different categories of premises and what each category is supposed to do, down to the patent and proprietary medicine vendor. Of course, the hospital pharmacy is also supposed to be under the superintendency of a pharmacist, who also have the authority to undertake the wide range of activities which I have listed out for community pharmacies.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that detailed explanation to look at the different categories, as well as it's good to know that there are different licenses that are needed for the different practices. That's settings, why. Yeah. So it's important for our guests and our viewers to know that when you go to different pharmacies, there are different licensings that are needed. So ensure that whatever pharmacy you're going to, that they have the licensing for the service that you're actually going there for. Thank you so much for that. Very much. Now, among these different categories you've mentioned, where would you say you find the most challenges when it comes to practice? Which would you say every other time they are on borderline when it comes to the regulation?
Very good question. The one on the borderline are the patent and proprietary medicine vendors. And they are also the one, or they were also the one that aggregated to establish another worrisome platform called open drug markets. There's nowhere in the world, anywhere in the world, where you go to a market, you see somebody selling foodstuffs, grocery, textile, and then the next shop is just selling medicine. Except here. Be that as it may, we are also on the part of, in fact, we have almost overcome that challenge because we have set clear timelines, clear guidelines for the closure of that market, of those markets. Now, having said that, those were these are the category of facilities with the that are on the borderline in terms of breach of regulation. Why? Is what I will tell you now.
Please do.
And of course, and I expect that will serve as a good point for the public to know why we are where we are and to appreciate what we are doing to reverse the trend.
Yes.
Now, the patent and proprietary medicine vendors are individuals who are not pharmacists, which means these are individuals who don't have the capacity to undertake the array of activities that I have listed that a pharmacy should do, from manufacturing down to handling, down to distribution, down to sale, down to counseling, down to handling of medicines. But then it was observed that we do not have enough pharmacists. We also have inadequate number of health facilities. And the ones we even have are skewly distributed in favor of the urban against the rural area. So the patent and proprietary medicine vendors were created in 1936 for the sole purpose of ensuring that we bridge this gap in areas to cover the shortcoming in terms of the number of pharmacists, the inadequate number of health facilities, as well as purely distributed distribution of these facilities.
Yes.
That simple household medicines that are called over-the-counter medicines this will be granted permission to handle those medicines so that people in hard-to-reach area, people in areas that are not properly covered can have access to this simple household medicine. Why simple household medicine? Because these are medicines with wide margin of safety. What you can call therapeutic index is very large. These are medicines that even when you take, the chances, the possibility of coming down with adverse side effects, is very rare. Take example of something like vitamin C. What dose of vitamin C can cause, a very serious, what we can call side effects. Perhaps you'll be talking about something like 60 grams. That's a whole, before somebody can take that, you should know that person, there is something wrong up there. The same paracetamol and what have you. But where the challenge came from was the fact that when this group of individuals were created, the authority to regulate them was situated in the ministry in charge of health. That's at the federal level. And then this authority is now delegated by the ministry to either any tier of government or any institution of government. And that was where the problem came from. We had times in the past, between 1936 and now, where this authority was delegated to as far as local governments. There were times this delegation was given to state ministries of health.
Yes.
There were times it was concentrated in the Federal Ministry of Health. Unfortunately, each time this delegation is done to either another tier of government or another institution of government, and the government again observed that it is not being properly done, the next point of thought is if the Pharmacy Council has also been established since 1936 to take care of manufacturers down to community pharmacies. Why can't they take care of people who are handling over-the-counter medicines?
Yeah.
So the next step will be, okay, let's take them back to the Pharmacy Council so that we'll have everything consolidated in one place. Sadly, at several times that this authorization was given or delegation was done, we had this group of people come together, challenge that process. They will want to be everywhere, anywhere, but not consolidated or centralized with the Pharmacy Council. And what do? They run to courts, secure injunctions. And some of those injunctions lasted sometimes for 10 years, ongoing, unresolved. What that meant was the Federal Minister of Health has said, go back to the Pharmacy Council. We said, no, we don't want to go. We've gone to court. Court said, okay, there is an injunction. Status quo remain. They are neither here nor there.
So thereby, they can't really be under any authority.
What that meant was it gave them the opportunity to use their own platform of association to now begin to take care of, to register and regulate themselves.
Now, what are the implications of that when it comes to public health?
Thank you very much. The implication now was these are people who don't have the knowledge, they don't have the competencies, they don't have the skill to do everything that they are currently doing, that is handling any category of medicine. You know, they started calling themselves doctors, chemists, and what have you, stocking to the level of controlled medicines, getting to the point of aggregating themselves in the market. What that poses to the public health, one, is that they don't have the required capacity or knowledge to know how to even source medicines, or which medicines are genuine, how medicines are supposed to be stored.
Yes.
Go to their facility, you cannot even see an air condition. You cannot see storage facilities. You cannot see proper handling processes. Even medicines that are appropriate or are properly produced are now faced with the challenge of storage. And that leads to degradation. If it were to be antibiotic, you have situations where you now take those antibiotics and they fail. What that means is that you begin to have antimicrobial resistance.
Yes.
What of controlled medicines? Everybody, even for a pharmacist who has authority to handle poisons, there are processes for handling prescription medicine. In fact, we have a register which was developed jointly with USAID, United States Agency for Information and Development. For every controlled medicine that is dispensed, we want to see the name of the prescriber. We want to see the date it was prescribed and the purpose for which it is prescribed. And we want to see the pharmacies that dispense it. And we want to see what is the inventory control in that facility. What was theirs before the prescription, what was left after the prescription. And then we can trace down. These people don't even obey these rules. So any and everybody now access controlled medicines. And where are we? It takes us to a point where issues of challenges of crime becomes a problem.
I hope you found that insightful. One final health update before our next segment. The National Cancer Institute says scientists are studying oncolytic viruses, specially modified viruses designed to target and destroy cancer cells while activating the body's immune system. Researchers say this emerging approach could expand future cancer treatment and the options alongside the traditional therapies. If you love our updates news, stay connected to us and our space by following Ukeme On Air on Instagram, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. Coming up, it's Balance Check, where we break down food, nutrients that we consume and explore how to balance and not to be excessive or restrictive. Remember, it is key to better health. Let's take a look. Not all cooking oils are the same. Some oils such as olive oil, canola oil, soybean oil are rich in unsaturated fats, which can support heart health when used in moderation as part of a balanced diet. On the other hand, oils that are higher in saturated fats like palm oil and coconut oil should be used more carefully, especially by people with high cholesterol or an increased risk of heart disease. The key isn't to avoid oil completely, it's about choosing the right type of oil, using the right amount, and maintaining a healthy overall diet. Healthy eating isn't about eliminating oil, it's about making smarter choices. And now that's our segment for today. Sadly, from medicine, safety, and healthcare regulations to global health development, we've explored the key issues shaping well-being across different areas. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this program, Health Digest, with us today. As always, you need to stay blessed and not stressed. I'm Ukemere Tokwa. Bye.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, AIT_live, and AIT Livestream 1 on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live. The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy.
And our governments seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should sit back and go. Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe it was for that reason in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
Chairman, many thanks for sharing your time with us on the program People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marere. Now, can two divisions of the Court of Appeal in the same week speak with seemingly different voices on the interpretation of the Electoral Act 2026 and the powers of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC? That is the constitutional and legal puzzle now confronting Nigeria's electoral process. While one judgment invalidated aspects of the Electoral Act, specifically Section 77, subsection 5, 6, and 7, and Section 84, subsection 2, that restricts political parties' discretion in conducting primaries and regulate membership registers, has been inconsistent with Sections 221 and 222 of the 1999 Constitution. Another ruling upheld key constitutional powers of INEC in regulating the electoral process and issuing guidelines for elections. The court held that the electoral body has the legal authority to regulate the conduct of elections within the framework of the law. The contrasting decisions have expectedly triggered fresh debates among lawyers, politicians, and election stakeholders over the legal status of INEC's regulations, the limits of legislative control over political parties, and the certainty of Nigeria's electoral jurisprudence as preparations intensify for the 2027 general elections. Do these judgments expose genuine contradictions in the law, or are they simply addressing different legal questions? Could the uncertainty encourage fresh rounds of litigation and political manipulation? What are the implications for political parties, candidates, INEC itself, and ultimately the credibility of the 2027 elections? These are the critical questions before us today. And I have joining me in the studio two senior lawyers to help me untangle this legal maze. First from my immediate right is Mr. Sam Kago, a senior advocate of Nigeria who is a private legal practitioner and a former law teacher. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Also joining us is Mr. Innocent Lagi, a former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Nasarawa State. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. There's only one senior today.
Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Yes,
So this is what is before us today.
Yes.
What is the status of these two judgments, these two rulings? Are they contradictory in nature, or are they just addressing different issues?
Well, I would try as much as possible not to second guess any of the judgments, and try as much as possible to stay within bounds, since both decisions are going to the Supreme Court. But let me say so, I think I've said so here. What could be an issue is your last proposition, which is that addressing two different issues and the matters of emphasis. I think the general law is simple, and even both judgments accept that that is at the trial level, and I don't think they might have gone to the Court of Appeal on those issues, which is the fact that, yes, INEC has the power to make regulations concerning the upcoming elections. Yes, INEC has the power to make timetables, and the Constitution recognizes that. But what I think is an issue is whether or not those powers can overreach the autonomy of political parties, and also whether it can rewrite the time lines that are stipulated in the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act has, with operationalizes the Constitution, has clearly stated the timelines within which political parties are to submit their candidates and what INEC is to do after the receipt of those candidates. And I think the law is clear, and both judgments are clear on that it cannot rewrite the Electoral Act and cannot abridge those timelines. And I do not think, and I do not see INEC making an issue over that, because right from about, there is the case of Musa and INEC, which clearly stipulates this, that yes, you can make regulations, but you cannot add or take away from what the law has already said, because I think in constitutional practice and theory, once the constitution has spoken, it has spoken absolutely. It's not, it doesn't give room for it to be second-guessed or for it to be refined by a body that is also a product of the Constitution and a beneficiary of the powers of the Constitution. So for now, I would think that we have to be very tentative so that we will not give the impression that some mischief is ongoing, but I do not think so. Because let's put it this way. Like you here, we've been together for a long time, and I think from about maybe 2000 and yes, is it 1999 or 2000 and thereabouts. Yeah, you see, we've been part of 2003. Yes, we've been part of this process, and most of the time, we try to be innovative and try to expand the powers of institutions when it suits us, and try to limit the powers of institutions when it suits us, because of what? The average mentality, the average philosophical makeup of us, which is what is good for me is good for everybody. What is not good for me is not good for everybody. So this is where we are. But for now, I think the political parties have their legal departments. They would have been adequately advised, and also INEC, because if for anything, INEC should only be making issues over expediencies that it is facing with respect to the conduct of the election, which is next about, is it February? January, February. So obviously there could be some sort of, what would I call it now? Some, would I say, expediency, in the sense that I do not think that we are adequately prepared for that time, and they would want to abridge some of these things in order to suit that, because at the end of the day, I think the argument will be that irrespective of what it is, the fundamental purpose of us being INEC is to deliver a good, credible, and fair election. And since it's a cascading process, one aspect of it at any level would affect the others. So in order to look at it periscopically, we have to try to see where we can take away some in order to make sure that at the end of the day, we deliver a good, fair, and credible election, because without that, the purpose would have been defeated.
Do you see any of these cases getting to the Supreme Court?
Very soon. They
Before
will.
They will.
Of course, they will, because they are given some sort of priority. Pre-election matters, they have their timelines because of these issues. They have to be resolved as quickly as possible in order to make things clear and prepare a very clear roadmap for the election.
Mr. Ladi, do you agree with this point, point that the San has made, or do you disagree? Do you think that going forward, these judgments are likely to impact any of the processes leading up to the elections in 2027?
I agree with him absolutely, and I agree they will impact. But let me see if we can demystify all of this then. The 1999 Constitution had made Nigeria, the governance of Nigeria, to be guaranteed a democratic system. And as long as we have leaders that come through a democratic process as the Constitution provides, it doesn't matter if it is a soldier, as long as the person who is going to be elected is elected in accordance with the Constitution, that will happen. But the background to all of this, the backstory, is in Section 40 of the Constitution. And if you may allow me, I'll just read so that we can then understand why we are where we are in the first place. Now, Section 40 of the Constitution guarantees, this is a fundamental right, universal, that every person, and it didn't say political party, it says every person is entitled to assemble freely and associate with other persons. And in particular, he may form or belong to any political party. Question is any political party, trade union, or any other association for the protection of his interest. Provided, very important, provided that the provision of this section shall not derogate from the powers conferred by this Constitution on the Independent National Electoral Commission in respect to political parties to which that commission does not accord recognition. Now, the freedom of association, the proviso to the freedom of association is limited to political parties. I mean, limits this freedom of association to political parties. And it's very remarkable that it didn't say for other associations, but particularly to political parties. It then made reference to INEC, even from that onset. And in this provision, the key word is that there are powers conferred on INEC itself in this Constitution is contained in the schedule to the Constitution. This Constitution creates INEC, the fundamental right to freedom of association belonging to a political party and for participating in elections. INEC was mentioned, specifically mentioned in this provision. And this has nothing much to do with an organization, but the right of every citizen. So Section 40 is not the freedom to form political parties per se, but is a right of every citizen of this country to form and belong to a political party, subject to the powers of INEC. And those powers are not the general powers that are given to INEC by the National Assembly, for example. These powers are the ones contained in the Constitution. Now, when you have specific powers conferred on INEC by the Constitution, the over-reliance on the limited powers that the National Assembly will have in terms of trying to interfere with the activities of INEC needs to be highlighted. INEC powers are constitutional itself. Every other thing that is not in the Constitution are those powers that the National Assembly is then now allowed in the schedule to then make such regulations. So the powers to register political parties, powers to make regulations, which is a subsidiary legislation because the Constitution had empowered INEC to make regulations for the organization, conduct of an election. Those powers can be exercised by INEC itself without the necessity of those same powers repeated or replicated in the Electoral Act. So in all of these conversations we're having, what had not been highlighted is whether or not every INEC power is conferred by the National Assembly. Or does INEC have powers, regulatory powers for that matter, to legislate subsidiary legislation in terms of how it will exercise the powers provided to it or given to it by the Constitution? Now, if INEC has the power to make regulations, INEC do have the power to make regulations. But that power is also subject to the right of citizens under Section 40 of the Constitution. Now, why Section 40 provide the proviso is so that you can check the exercise of those powers with either the enforcement of those rights or an attempt to limit those rights. So anytime you question an INEC regulation, it should specifically be on how it relates to our rights to form, belong to political parties and contest elections under such political parties for the protection of our interest. vis-a-vis the exercise of INEC power to conduct an election. Because basically, the powers of INEC is primarily to conduct elections. Secondly, is to regulate the activities of political parties. Yes.
Right. But, Sam, let me bring you to the issue of the Electoral Act itself. The Electoral Act 2026 exceeds its constitutional limits in determining or prescribing the modes of or the modes of conducting primaries for picking candidates. I ask that question because this judgment is coming after the political parties had conducted all their primaries. And that was based on the provisions of the Electoral Act 2026, which made it room for only two.
Yes, consensus and direct primaries. And ruled out the delegate system and all of that. But this ruling says no. It's not. You cannot. The National Assembly cannot determine for the political parties which or any which way they want to conduct their primaries. I'm not too sure whether that's an issue, but let me emphasize on the point he's made. You know, political parties are first and foremost private associations, right? And every private association, its internal affairs are private, and not one that even the courts can dabble into, and definitely not ones that the INEC can dabble into. But the other face of it, it has a hybrid personality, one private, the other one institutional, which makes it a public. And the institutional aspect of it is conferred by the Constitution. And whatever the Constitution gives is enumerated. And that enumerated powers within that institutional personality are absolute. The National Assembly cannot add or take away from it. And now, the relationship between INEC and the political parties has to do with what? The management and supervision or oversight of the public function or the public personality of political parties, which is the Constitution had said this is what the threshold you need to have for you to be registered as a political party. If you lose this threshold, you can be deregistered. And also, the same Constitution has given the National Assembly the power to operationalize those powers for the good governance of what? The society. And it is on that basis that what? The National Assembly can make laws to democratize the system and also what? Enforce the democratic imperative that is in the Constitution. Because the Constitution has said you must have a process that ensures and promotes internal democracy, right? So the National Assembly is there to operationalize that, and the National Assembly is also there to operationalize the powers of INEC. Because the substantive law here is the Constitution. The procedural law, how do you put into effect these powers and there is limitation, is what? Expressed in the Electoral Act, which is why I say that is what, in essence, the procedural law, which is the process by which you actualize this. So here it is. INEC's business with the political parties, first, after the registration, you have the financial oversight, you have the campaign oversight, and the election of their own candidates, that through nomination, it has the power to give the procedure through which you can nominate and submit their candidates to INEC, because INEC has to have what? details of the candidates. So all of that, the law has what? Stipulated and made clear provisions for. Where I would think, and I have also reasoned about it, that do not interpret this and operationalize Section 77 beyond its procedural purpose. If you make it and interpret it and operationalize it as a substantive law, you may be at loggerhead with the Constitution. And I think perhaps that is what is being tested now, because when you now go beyond you prescribing how they can submit their candidate, you now go by prescribing how they can, what? Have their candidates like the prescriptions made in Section 77 give that kind of a warning that it may, if it is interpreted to mean absolute provisions that cannot be tinkered with by circumstance and purpose, then, like I have said in my writing, that may conflict with the Constitution, and if it does, it may be struck down. Right? But I am also not too sure that if INEC says direct primaries and consensus, that by itself substantially affect the process of what? Nomination. Because the imperative in the nomination and the bottom line of this is what? Democracy. Is that democratic enough? Would the third arm of it by itself be just another democratic option? So it depends. If you have the liberalists will say, well, for the purpose of this, let's let it go. But if you have the old school who would say, the Austinian to say, this is what the law says, you cannot go beyond a syllable of the letters of the Constitution, then obviously it would be an infraction. But to me, if you ask me, I do not see where those two, limitation of those two by themselves infract on the democratic imperative, which is, like I have said, the bottom line in the process. How do you get your candidate? By what process do you get your own candidate? Is it a democratic process? And that is why I would also say that it is not the business of INEC to make judgment of that. What INEC is given the power to do is to observe and archive its observations. Anybody who wants those observations can ask for them, and they may be useful evidence in any dispute concerning the nomination itself. But INEC has no business, right, to tell a political party how to conduct its own primaries. The National Assembly has done that. If you have problems with that, you ask that very particular law be struck down because what? It infracts the Constitution, but you won't blame that on INEC. It is not INEC who made that prescription. INEC is only an archiver, an administrator of the process. So all that INEC has business with nominations is monitor the process, keep your own findings, and do not make any definitive judgment concerning that. It is now your business to say this person won or this person lost. All that is incumbent on you to do is when anybody who has a complaint asks for it, you give it to say, we monitor the election as independent, unbiased institution. This is what we observe. The election was conducted here and supervised by XYC. We monitored it and they gave us what? The results. And the results that was announced and given to us, here it is. It ends there.
Mr. Lagi, you recall the hue and cry that emerged after the passage of the Electoral Act, as far as this provision is concerned, because many of the political parties had hitherto, in fact, in previous elections, adopted the delegate system and all of that. And they probably saw the direct primaries as a more expensive process to go through instead of the delegate system. And then, of course, the consensus system in many places were very contentious. And as we speak, there are politicians, there are candidates and aspirants who have approached one court or the other in their various political parties, disputing the conduct of those primaries. Now, as of today, that is the law. Now, and that is what all the political parties, almost all of them, have submitted the names of their candidates to INEC for the 2027 elections. And here we are, under the current framework, that is what INEC is working with. Pending, of course, if there is a Supreme Court judgment that alters this entire thing. Now, what do you see between now and the elections happening?
I think we're going to have, there will be a number of chaotic situations that will arise, certainly. Because once an act is unlawful, it is unlawful. It does not have a limitation period within which to challenge the validity of a law. For instance, as I said in the beginning, the Constitution itself gives INEC powers. Just like the President of the country has been given powers, legislative powers have been given to the National Assembly, judicial powers have been given to the judiciary. But the powers to conduct elections, to register political parties, they are contained in the schedule, specific powers that the Constitution had given INEC as an institution. Now, the interference by the National Assembly over those powers, or the review of those constitutional powers by the Electoral Act, or the imposition or an attempt to limit those powers by the Electoral Act, all these provisions we're talking about, will the National Assembly, under this same Constitution, be sharing the same power with INEC in so doing? If it does not share the powers with INEC, for instance, the right to belong to an association is an individual's right. The right to form the association is an individual right. What the association then does with its own association, or how it protects its interests and its own right, it is an individual personal right. None of those can be interfered with by the National Assembly or INEC except as allowed by the Constitution. Now, parties, I still believe, even from the framework of the law as it is constitutionally, that INEC has no power to prescribe for a political party how it runs. No, sorry. The National Assembly, through the Electoral Act, cannot make provisions for how a party will nominate its own candidate, because that will be an interference with their right to privacy, their right to associate in the manner they want to, because it's an individual right. Is it the right to eat eba? For example, we are association of eba eaters. You can't tell us how to make the gari or what to make the gari, because it's none of your business. Every member of the House of Assembly, if he disagrees with what we are doing as an association, can form his own association to do what it has to do or wants to do. Now, if for instance, if the power, and I will be tentative on this, the power to regulate or make regulations for how political parties organize themselves is an INEC power provided under the Constitution. Can the National Assembly, in the same vein, derogate from that power or remove that power that is conferred by the Constitution on INEC by an enactment in the Electoral Act? I don't think so. Whatever INEC does that contradicts what the Constitution says INEC will do, INEC has power to do, will be contrary to the Constitution, and to that extent it will be null and void. If INEC, for example, exceeds the proviso on regulation of association beyond what Section 40 said it can do, then whatever INEC's regulation that is made in that respect will then be inconsistent with the provision of Section 40, and to the extent of that inconsistency, that regulation can be set aside.
So in other words, you are saying that the provisions of the Electoral Act, Section 77 and 82, contravenes the provisions of
Section
the Constitution
40 and of the powers of INEC contained under the schedule.
So do you see a situation, Sam, do you see a situation where there could be an amendment to these provisions before the next general election? Or do you see a situation where the primaries have been done, candidates' names have been submitted to INEC, and we are just about 6 months away or even 5 months away from the next general election? Let's go ahead and conduct the 2027 elections based on the provisions of this Electoral Act, and thereafter maybe we can think of tinkering with it.
Yeah, I think my personal view would be that I think it's too late in the day to go that route, because you recalibrate the entire system if you tamper with that. But let me just emphasize something here, so that not that I want to second guess my colleague, no, because we are expressing personal views. You see, the role of the National Assembly, like I said, is to operationalize the democratic content in the activities of political parties. That is its business. Those are the powers given to it by the Constitution itself, right? And how does it go about that, other than making concrete provisions regarding those aspects of the powers of the political parties that are given by the Constitution? The Constitution gives them the power to sponsor political actors, right? Anybody who wants to go into any political office, any elective office, must be sponsored by a political party. That's what the Constitution says. And the Constitution goes ahead to say, in that wise, ensure that your sponsorship of those political parties is done what? Democratically. What is democratic in that context is not defined. You can find it in the books, but the National Assembly has the right to what? To operationalize that through its own provisions. And for every round of elections, there is always what? That sixth sense of what the general public saw as what? Undemocratic in the process. The delicate system was over time, complaints all over the place as being what? Another word for the manipulation of the executive. The executive chooses the delegates and, of course, give them a direction and directive as to who to vote for. And sometimes it's just performative in the sense that from the beginning you already know where it's going. Exactly. So if that process is seen over time to be undemocratic, and the National Assembly in its own wisdom thinks that they can take it off, mind you, the problem that we are having with the two is not in the letters of the law, but in its operation. What law could be better than the provision on the consensus candidate, in the sense that for you to read that consensus, everybody who had participated, as long as you buy a form, that decision must be made by you collectively. And if you have 1 million of you, only one person says no, the process ends there. You go to direct primary. And what could be more democratic than the direct primary? Mind you, cost is never really an alternative to what? Legitimacy of the process. So if these two are there, I would not say that the non-inclusion of the delegate system would by itself be so substantially inimical to what? the operationalization of the democratic process that the Constitution has prescribed. But let's come back to whether or not they can tinker with it. No, because like INEC is emphasizing, this is a cascading system. Every phase of the election, mind you, election is not a day process. The election for 2027 is already ongoing. Because what? It's a process that starts with nominations. From nominations, publication of this, and the pre-election disputes, because the Constitution, in its wisdom, expect that by the time you go to the election, all of the dispute arising from the nominations would have been settled, and that's why they put timelines to it. And whereas the ordinary cases would take years, this one takes about months. When did we have the trial court's decision on SDP and INEC and Youth Party and INEC? Just very recently, and now the Court of Appeal has what? Resolved the appeals. And I would also guess that within 1 month, same would have been done at the Supreme Court. So let's leave it at that and let the Supreme Court make his pronouncement on it. If indeed the Supreme Court says that particular limitation in itself has infracted on the rights of the political parties, so be it. But here is some of those procedural problems that we are having. You want to go and challenge a law, specifically, you want to challenge it during a pre-election matters whereby the parties are limited. The National Assembly is not going to be a party to a pre-election matter. If you do so, you are going to run into problems with the timeline. So usually, the pre-election matters are limited to INEC, political parties, and candidates. Or aspirants.
Aspirants, yes.
Right? Those are the pre-election, what do you call it now? Recognized parties. And for you to challenge a law, not a regulation, mind you, the Youth Party and SDP did not go to court to challenge the law. They challenge what? The timelines issued by INEC, because that's the sensible thing to do in that process. But somebody can also take a civil action challenging those particular provisions, and they will be heard. And if the Supreme Court at the end of the day says those provisions, that law by itself is unconstitutional, and so be it.
So for purposes of judicial, or should I say, providing certainty for judicial jurisprudence, do you see the Supreme Court, like it says, dealing with this matter expeditiously before the elections?
The Constitution says the Supreme Court must deal with it expeditiously. The Supreme Court has set out rules and procedures to deal with them expeditiously. Now, the consequences, the question we should be asking is, what will the consequence of a decision that, for example, set aside certain provisions that were relied on to get to where we were? The other case that is of relevance in this discourse is the case of Zenith Labour Party versus INEC on qualification to contest an elections. Courts were very clear, appellate courts were very clear that the Constitution, and this is what makes this very risky, the Constitution has made provisions for qualification to contest an election. The Electoral Act cannot alter that.
Take that away.
Yeah. No. And that is what I'm trying to emphasize consistently, that it's going to get chaotic. But thank God the Supreme Court had come out to say it is both a court of law and a court of policy. But if the Constitution is now supreme to our thought, our point of view, we will have to abide by the Constitution. Even the Supreme Court cannot set aside the provision of the Constitution. The Supreme Court is not supreme to the Constitution, because even it was a creation of the Constitution. So that is the biggest law, the most potent law in the country. The question now is, assuming we get to a point, we can conduct these elections while some of these cases are pending up to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court sets aside a method or a procedure adopted by INEC in reaching a declaration in this election. What will then be the consequences of that declaration vis-a-vis the decision of the court, the Supreme Court in this respect? And that is why it is very important we are careful. As I said, the National Assembly's power are contained under the exclusive legislative list, and some of them in the concurrent legislative list. The National Assembly, by its general constitutional power, is to make laws for the good governance of Nigeria. Now, if, for example, there is an action by the National Assembly that infringes the fundamental right of an individual, now, even if it is one person, to how he associates, what he can do in his association, if there is an interference with that power, and the court says, look, the action of the National Assembly contradicts this private right, and therefore that power to that extent is set aside and nullified and infringes that right, it takes us all back. And that is why we need not go to the courts always. And my dear friend is here, we've been doing this for a long time. All lawyers, all judges have the same qualification coming to where we are sitting. We know some of these things on our decks before we go to the court. And we can have a conversation around it. Constitutional provisions are above any other law, any other action. Now, and this is the trick. The Constitution provides power, and I'm hoping we can have this into consideration, of INEC to make regulation. It did not say that INEC should take its regulation to the National Assembly to be made into law. It has the power to regulate conduct of election, to regulate political parties and their activities. Those are powers. The Constitution didn't say you can take it to the National Assembly. It says you have the power to regulate. Now, every guideline issued by INEC pursuant to those powers contained in the schedules and given to INEC will be valid, and the court must be able to say and interpret those powers to mean they have the powers to do the things they are doing if they do it without contravening the rights of individuals or contravening another provision of the Constitution, because those are constitutional powers. So, like the National Assembly, as I said, INEC is one of the bodies that have been empowered to make regulations for the for the registration of political parties and the conduct of political parties. Now, if there is a challenge in respect of the validity of a law by the National Assembly, to say it contradicts the section of the Constitution that empowers only INEC to make that regulation, and that the National Assembly has no power under the Constitution to intervene or to make those laws except INEC. So it then means the Constitution must be interpreted to say, because it is supreme, where the National Assembly had not been given powers to do something, and it is INEC that is given power to do that, the exercise of the INEC power in doing that thing would be upheld. The exercise of the National Assembly power to attempt to do the same thing will be set aside, because the powers to do that thing that INEC said it did not derive from a legitimate source of power.
Yes, my final question, we'll take it along.
For that, let's just make this distinction here. The power to regulate political parties is for the National Assembly, not INEC. INEC is not...
Sorry, may I have a copy of your Constitution so I can just...
INEC is not a regulator of political, but of the electoral process. Yes. It's the electoral process that INEC has the power to regulate. Not the affairs of a political party can only be regulated by the National Assembly, not INEC.
Well, so my final question is, yes, given the situation now, any which way the Supreme Court eventually decides these issues, how will it impact the credibility of the 2027 elections? Is it likely to?
The election are going to be conducted on the day of the election. This is a preparation for effective election delivery. And just like he said, which is what I want to expand, the political parties and INEC should not be talking past themselves on these issues. In some other places, for every step they take, they sit with the electoral body, and the electoral body gives its own views, and together they make decisions. But here, I think they are acting on that spirit of suspicion. Whatever step that INEC takes, they interpret it with suspicion. We shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, like I said, what is paramount is the election. And like I said, the substantive provisions are section 221 to 229 of the Constitution. The Electoral Act is a product of those provisions. Anything in the Electoral Act that by itself, in fact, those provisions are by itself for that purpose null and void.
Okay. All right. Mr. Lage, very quickly, 60 seconds.
Okay, let me just read this. So we're looking at the third schedule to the Constitution, section 15 particularly, makes provision specifically, expressly. The commission, that is INEC, shall have the power to organize, undertake, supervise all elections to the offices of the President, Vice President, the Governor, Deputy Governor of a state, to members of the National Assembly, Houses of Assembly for the Federation. Power to register political parties in accordance with the provision of this Constitution and an act of the National Assembly. That is for registration of political parties. Monitor the organization and operation of political parties, including their finances, conventions, congresses, and party primaries. It shall have power to monitor the organization. Subsection B said, register political parties in accordance with the provision of this Constitution and the Electoral Act. Subsection C says, monitor, organize. Monitor the organization, not to make regulations for the organization or the conduct of the primaries. Monitor the organization and operation of political parties, including their finances, conventions, congresses, and party primaries. It didn't say it can make regulations to that extent. Arrange for the annual examination and auditing of the account. Arrange and conduct the registration of persons qualified to vote. Monitor political campaigns and provide rules and regulations which shall govern the political party.
Okay. Now, well, unfortunately, Mr. Lage, our time is fast spent. We would have loved to go further into that. I think this is an issue that we can come back to look at in more detail.
I think we should, because the bottom line is whether or not these powers have been shared between INEC and any other organization under the Constitution. If it is not, this power is exclusively exercisable by INEC, not the National Assembly, not the President, and nobody else.
Except if you are...
If we don't like it, we can amend the Constitution.
Except if you are questioning the electoral... I'm under a level of pressure from my...
I'm questioning the Electoral Act. I'm questioning the Electoral Act. Because if it is inconsistent with this provision, that provision from the Electoral Act should be set aside.
We'll be back coming out on this. Yes, we'll be back to look at these aspects of the Constitution and the Electoral Act, and of course, as we do that, we are also hoping that the Supreme Court will look at these issues and deal with them very quickly. For clarity and for certainty.
The problem with this is that...
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you. I've had with me Mr. Sam Kabo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and of course, a private legal practitioner here in the nation's capital and a former law teacher. He's been joined by Mr. Innocent Lage, a former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Nasarawa State. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having us.
That's our program for today. Of course, we will be back at some other time to get more clarity on these issues as we move towards the 2027 election.